Right now, Senator-elect Ruben Gallego joins me to talk about his historic election victory and what he'll do in the U.S. Senate. Also on Sunday Square Off, Governor Katie Hobbs says she's focused on the future after Democrats were drubbed on Election Day. Will that future be a rerun of Hobbs' first 2 years in office? Can Arizona's divided government come together to save hundreds of millions of dollars in school funding? The judge overseeing Arizona's fake electors case is forced to step down. What happened and what comes next?
I'm a husband, a Marine, a father, and a proud Arizonan. And with the results we saw tonight, your next senator from the great state of Arizona.
We start with Democratic Senator-elect Ruben Gallego of Phoenix declaring victory and making history, winning election as the first Latino senator in Arizona's 112 years of statehood. With a vast majority of ballots counted statewide, he leads Republican Kari Lake with 50.1% of the vote to 47.7% for Lake. Now, right after that speech Monday night, Gallego took a red-eye to Washington, D.C. for a new senator's orientation, and that's where we find the senator-elect this morning. Congratulations, sir, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Bram.
I'm getting a lot of questions about what is a new senator's orientation like? Don't they know where the cafeteria is, the bathrooms? What are you learning?
Well, look, while you are in the same building, you know, when you're in Congress, you rarely cross over there because you have a lot of work going on this side. But really, it's the rules and decorum, a lot of the ethics that you have to follow that are a little different from the House side, procedural things, how to set up your office, how to hire staff, you know, your committee assignments, working for, you know, and also you start meeting other members of the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, so you start forming relationships with them so you could start working together as soon as possible.
Do you have your committee assignments yet?
No, I put in my requests, and you know, they're very much focused on Arizona to try to make sure that we push forward with the agenda that I heard from Arizonans while running for U.S. Senate, and let's hope I get them.
Top one, what's the one you really want?
Well, I don't want to reveal too much because this is a lot of gamesmanship that you have to negotiate with other U.S. senators. But at the end of the day, it's going to be focusing on a couple of things. Number one, border security. Number two, bringing down the costs of everyday living in Arizona, whether it's bringing more middle-class tax cuts, child tax credit, child care tax credits, and other you know, programs basically to bring down the cost of housing.
All right, let's talk about the campaign. You're the only success story in a red wave year here in Arizona. You had to overcome a historic registration advantage for Republicans. Why are you the last one standing in 2024?
There seems to be a theme in my life, to be honest. Look, I work very, very hard. And I think the difference between me and a lot of the campaigns, I started this campaign 23 months ago. And I started by understanding that Arizona is a center-right leaning state, to be honest. And I had to make sure that I spoke to my Republican friends, which I was lucky enough to have a lot of from my time in service in the State House and just in general working in civic life in Arizona. And I just went out and I spoke to them and I talked to them about what Arizona of the future looks like working together. And we didn't get every Republican that we met with, we didn't get their support. But we got enough, and now my job is to bring that home to them. I think that's what the message was out there. This is why we really, not just in Arizona, but we did very well compared to many candidates across the country.
And you certainly did better than Kamala Harris did here. Arizona voters are notorious ticket splitters, and it looks like both you and Donald Trump benefited from votes from Latino men. How do you explain that?
Well, you know, from my experience, you know, as someone that grew up, you know, working class, Latino men are worried about two things. economic security and family security. And the failure for Democrats to control that border, especially when it got particularly bad, I think the hesitancy of this administration really turned off a lot of those Latino men. This is why we were very active in making sure we're pushing forward for more border security. We're very strongly supportive of the bipartisan border security bill. And we're actively talking about what measures we need to do, as well as economic security. You know, there's nothing worse as someone who has been in a situation where you work so hard, and this is not just Latino men, I think this is just anyone in general, when you work so hard and you're still not making the bills, or you still feel that you're only one paycheck away from falling through. And you know, as things were turning around, and they were without a doubt, it was much too late. And I think, unfortunately, Vice President Harris paid for a lot of the mistakes that happened under the Biden administration, because she just couldn't get her message out that I think was an important message about, you know, increasing wages, bringing good-paying jobs, you know, health care for our families, while at the same time bringing down costs.
And so what's the message for the Arizona Democratic Party, the larger party, about coming elections, about how the electorate has changed and how the party maybe needs to change its message?
Well, the one thing that we did, I think, very different from maybe all campaigns across this country, is that we recognize that Latino voters were a swing voter from day one. So when we started the campaign in 23 months ago, we started talking to especially Latino men, and we did it in very creative ways, boxing, watching boxing watch parties, loteria games, concerts. I mean, all these things that we knew were a better way to approach it, even in, you know, emphasizing reaching them on YouTube more than on TV. And so I think what it means is that you have to make sure that you're treating this community as someone that is a swing community. You have to start talking to them early and often. You have to talk to them not necessarily just about immigration and the border, but you should also be talking about the future, right? Because the Latino community, much like every other community in Arizona, wants to have the American dream. They want to buy a home, or even younger people, they just want to be able to move out of their parents' house and go afford an apartment, right? They want to be able to, have a wage that actually pays for a decent living. And until we can focus on that and be the party that shows them that we're the ones that can do that, then we're going to have a tougher time winning those votes. So focusing on bringing down the cost of living, bringing more security, higher wage jobs, and really be able to, you know, live the American dream is something that it's important for us to get that vote, but also the vote of all Arizonans.
Has Kari Lake called you to concede?
No calls and no tweets and no Snapchats at this point. But, you know, for me, it's time to move on. This election is over. It's time to focus on Arizonans and not past elections. And I don't need the phone call. Let's just move forward and let's make Arizona a better state.
I have to ask you about the filibuster. You wanted filibuster reform. You want to clear it out so Democrats could get things done in the Senate. Now you are in the Senate minority. How do you feel about the filibuster now? Is it a good thing?
Look, I've been very consistent on this. I think the filibuster is actually what's causing a lot of the problems in this country, because nothing ever gets done when people elect Democrats or Republicans. They feel, if anything, that, you know, their vote was wasted. Had we actually had, at least a reform filibuster, which is what I'm for, which is something that goes back to the actual founding of the country, which is you actually have to talk it out. You just don't get to write a piece of paper saying you're not going to debate this anymore. We would have had immigration reform by now. We would have had more border security. We would have had probably, the child tax credit that would have actually helped everyone that dealing with inflation. It's not my job to make the Republicans' job easier. It's my job to represent Arizona. But my point is very consistent, the fact that if we're ever going to get anything done to actually help Arizonans, to help working class people, we have to reform the filibuster.
Even though Republicans right now, if it had been reformed, might have free reign or close to it in the Senate?
Well, if it had been reformed, Bram, my contention is we would have passed a border security bill that would have actually brought more people to understand that Democrats are here for border security. We would have had dreamers, by the way, now that would be not worrying about whether or not they're going to be deported, because we would have passed the DREAM Act almost 10 years ago. We probably would have been able to pass a real tax reform package that would have given Arizonans and working class people a child tax credit and child care. These are the things that we have not been able to do because we have not reformed the filibuster. And this is why we're losing working class people, because every time we try to do something to help working class people, for example, a minimum wage increase, filibustered. And not like a very generous minimum wage increase. I'm talking about $10 minimum wage increase, which would even affect Arizonans. So this is what we have to contend to. Are we going to be the party that is all about process, or about actually delivering results for people that they actually can see and say, like, I understand why I vote for a Democrat right now, because it gets me higher wages, lower costs, and more security. Until we start producing that and are focusing more on process, we're not going to be winning elections.
I want to put a time stamp on this. We're talking Friday morning. Lots could happen over the next, by the time we get to Sunday, especially with Donald Trump.
A lot could happen in the next hour.
In the next hour, we've been watching President-elect Trump nominate, or say he's going to nominate, people to top jobs in his administration. Many of them have some pretty questionable backgrounds, and there are a lot of doubts about whether they are up to the job. Matt Gaetz, Pete Hegseth, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. What word would you use to describe these appointees?
Look, I'm not going to play those type of word games or anything like that. The focus on the nominations are going to be a couple of things. Number one, first and foremost, protecting the Constitution of the United States. I think that's a very important mark that we have to make sure that nominees pass. Number two, is this going to be good for the safety and security of Arizonans? And number three, is this going to help, where relevant, bring down the cost to everyday Arizonans? That's going to be my, my dividing line. And I will say there are some questionable nominees so far from this president. There are some very, I would say, favorable and very hopeful nominees that I look forward to talking to also. But we're going to have a very clear and transparent process that Arizonans will know who and why I'm supporting them or not supporting them.
Who are the hopeful ones, people you think show promise?
Look, I think, though I don't agree with them 100% on everything, I do think that Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik, and Waltz are probably decent picks. I have to go through the confirmation process. We'll sit down and meet with them as part of that in my office, and I'll talk to them specifically about some of my concerns on some of their policy views. But I know all of them in a personal capacity, one or the other. Waltz was on my subcommittee when I was the chairman of Intel Special Operations. We went to Ukraine together. I invited him to be part of my delegation. He's a veteran, Iraq and Afghanistan veteran like myself. Elise Stefanik and I have known each other since college. And again, we've had some disagreements and some strong disagreements, but I will give her an opportunity because I want to see where her world policy view is potentially as a UN ambassador.
Donald Trump has talked about mass deportations. He's put 2 people in place who could carry them out. How likely do you think it's going to be that he carries them out? And what is your advice for folks here in Arizona, which could be hit very hard on many fronts if Trump does indeed carry out mass deportations?
The most important thing that we have to remember is that anything that happens in this country has to have due process. If you are under a deportation order, so you have committed a crime, especially a serious crime, you will be deported, and you should be deported. But there are other communities that do not deserve that. For example, if we see that happen to Dreamers, if we see that to people that have largely, settled in, kept their nose clean, are in some type of process, adjudication process, to become, get a visa, permanent residency, obviously they should also have an opportunity for them to have due process. But the most important thing we have to do is give people the opportunity to defend themselves. And anything that is extrajudicial and unconstitutional, I think we all have to be ready to fight back. But unfortunately, what we're seeing now is that there's this vast net that this president wants to throw out, and I think we have to make sure that we institute as much guardrails to that. And due process is that.
Senator-elect Ruben Gallego, thanks very much for joining us. Best of luck in the Senate.
Thanks, Bram.